Okay, so we'll start with Mangalacharan prayers. Let me share my screen. Om Gyanam Tivrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakammalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadhuvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी ऋषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पांचकल्पद्रुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णा पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चादेशतारिणे So welcome in today's session. So we covered till chapter 5, Karma Yoga. In fact, we covered more than that. We also discussed who is the Supreme Lord, which are coming in the future chapters. But just to set the context, in the beginning itself, I spoke about. So now there are different yogas, right? There is Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyan Yoga. So in chapter 6, Krishna elaborates about Dhyan Yoga. Dhyan Yoga is Dhyan in Hindi, in English means meditation, and yoga. Yoga, as I say, the word yoga means it comes from yog. Yog means to, basically, yog means to join, right? In basic Sanskrit, basic Hindi, join, that is yog. So in this context, join basically, if we do any act which basically joins us or in the service of Lord, that's called yoga. So Dhyan Yoga. So in this particular chapter, Lord Krishna talks about the meditational path of yogis. Like we today see a lot of people follow this path of meditation where they sit down and meditate, right? So there is actually a bona fide eightfold yoga system. It's called Ashtanga Yoga. And what we do as part of Ashtanga Yoga, like like this different postures, yoga postures is part of that. So eightfold yoga system is like Yam Niyam Asan. Okay, Yam Niyam Asan, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. So that is the eightfold yoga system which comes under this Dhyan Yoga. Okay, so in this chapter, Lord Krishna elaborately talks. So we'll just briefly discuss what he has to say, and then we will discuss the practicality of this Dhyan Yoga in this age of Kali Yuga, in this age of quarrel, when people have no time and they are very disturbed from the minds. The lifespan of humans is short. So is it really practical? And what did Arjuna spoke when he listened about this path of Dhyan Yoga to Krishna? Okay, so let me just read the few translations. So it starts with like Lord Krishna saying to Arjun that one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic. Not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. Okay, so very clearly says the definition of a mystic, true mystic, is like a yogi is who works as a matter of fact, as a duty, and he's not attached to the fruits of the work. What it means, whatever he gets, from the work, he's not attached with the fruits, meaning with the remuneration which he gets, or anything which he gets by doing this work. He's not attached, and in fact he does the work as he's obligated or as a matter of duty. Then he's the true mystic, he's the true renunciate. And then he says, what is called renunciation you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the supreme. Okay, so here the word yoga comes. So the definition of yoga, as I was saying, is to join or link oneself with the supreme. Okay. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So the biggest reason why the living entity is in this material world and suffering is because of his desire for sense gratification, that he wants to gratify his senses or enjoy his senses, right? These senses are very, very powerful, and they drive the person crazy. Like, they demand so many things, and mind is one of the senses, and then there are other senses. So because they demand so many things, then the person is just become slave for his senses, and that's the reason he is basically suffering in this material world. We get little happiness, material happiness, but with that little happiness, lot of suffering comes. So ignorant or a person just going after that little happiness which he may get in the material world, and then he suffers a lot, and then again gets little happiness and then suffers a lot, right? This kind of chain is going on and on and on. So Lord Krishna is saying that one who has renounces the desire for sense gratification, only he can be practitioner of a yoga, like this dhyan yoga particularly. He can, because if your senses are troubling you, how can you meditate, right? You are sitting meditation and your senses are demanding, oh, I want gulab jamun, or I want to go out and see movies, or I want to go and enjoy. Then how will you meditate? You will meditate only on these things, right? So So then Lord Krishna further says that a person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So that person is said to be elevated in yoga, particularly in this context, it's Dhyan Yoga, who has renounced all the desires. Like we would have seen many yogis, they have renounced the world, like they leave aside. So he's saying all material desires, and he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in any fruitive activities. So both, he does not want to engage in sense gratifying the senses, nor in engaging fruitive activities. Now, very important verse about the mind. Then Krishna talks about from now the mind, like one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. Now he says, this is, I think, also a saying in English, that, and it is come from here, Bhagavad Gita. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul and enemy as well. So if the mind is under our control, then it can become the best of the best friend. But if mind is not controlled, it can become the worst enemy, right? Because the mind is the one, if it is not under the control, it can overtake us. And the nature of mind is that it keeps jumping like a monkey. It wants this, it wants this, it keeps thinking. A lot of thoughts come and it keeps demanding. Reason being, because we are kind of affected by the modes of material nature, we are conditioned. So mind always, you can say, goes on the objects of senses, uh, right? For example, when it sees some uh, basically some beautiful image, it wants to see, it wants to go out, enjoy, like that, enjoy materially. It's very, very difficult for mind to bring it under control, and but it's not impossible also. But that's why Lord Krishna is saying that the mind is a friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. And next line he says, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of the friends. Very important. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. You see here. So let's read a little bit about it, because this is the important verse. So Prabhupada writes that the purpose of practicing Eightfold Yoga system is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga is simply a waste of time. Okay. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is situated within the heart as Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes to this Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to dictation of Lord follows automatically. Okay, so here Lord Krishna is saying, if the mind remains unconquered, then it is the worst enemy, it is the greatest enemy. But if the mind is conquered, then it becomes the best of our friend. Okay, and if you see here, the purpose of Dhyan Yoga is to meditate. Now we have so many yogas, but whom they meditate on? Any answer? Like, did anyone mention that whom should we meditate on? When you sit on the meditation and close your eyes, whom should we meditate on? That's the best question. Like, that's the purpose, right? Even to meditate. So whom should we meditate on? So as per Bhagavad Gita, one should meditate on the form of the Lord, or one should meditate on his lotus feet. So when we go to a temple, we see a nice Archa Vigraha of deities, right? So if you go to a particular temple again and again, you will immediately can take your mind, and that picture, image of that deities will come in your heart. Like, so one should meditate on that form of the Lord as per Bhagavad Gita. But today what's happening in the society is, in the name of meditation, people are meditating on anything and everything. Like sometimes people say you meditate, close your eyes and meditate on your nose, meditate on something, some article, like some, let's say there is this anything on the wall, you just meditate. But that's not Dhyan Yoga. That's not bona fide Dhyan Yoga. That's simply you are just trying to artificially meditate on something, and that brings no good to anyone. Okay, so the purpose of Dhyan Yoga is to meditate on the form of the Lord. Okay, otherwise there is no use. And again, the purpose of this Eightfold Yoga system, as it was, to control the mind, to bring it under the control by meditation. And similarly, when we do Harinam, Kirtan, or sorry, Japa, we sit at one place and meditate on the sound vibration. We bring our mind to listen to that sound vibration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So each word, Hare Krishna. So we engage our mind to listen to each and every word, and that is also you. That's why it's called also, it's called sound, like sorry, Harinam Japa, right? Meditating on the sound vibration. Because in this age of Kali Yuga, there is no difference between the Lord and his sound vibration. When we say Krishna, there is no difference between saying Krishna and you can say meeting Krishna face to face. Because as I mentioned in that class on Harinam, that Lord has invested all his energy in his name in this age. Okay, so this is one of the important things, but it's not very easy also to conquer the mind. But Lord Krishna says, one who has conquered the mind, then the mind is best of friends. But for one who has not, then it's the greatest enemy. Then he further says, for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor, dishonor are all the same. So if someone is really have conquered the mind and it has reached, like has advanced, for him, happiness, distress, honor, dishonor, it doesn't matter, because he has reached that stage of spiritual advancement where these things are immaterial for him. And so the yogis, actually their goal is to see meditate and see the Lord, that super soul, Paramatma in the heart itself. That's their goal. Okay, that's the yogic practice. So now further Lord Krishna will talk about how to practice Dhyana Yoga. He says a transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. Okay, then further it elaborates that to practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusa grass on ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Okay, one should hold one's body, neck erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind devoid of fear, free from sex life, one should meditate. So all that he keeps on explaining about how to practice Dhyana Yoga. Okay, that one should be going to a secluded place and should lay kusa grass on ground, cover with deer skin, soft cloth, all that. Okay, then I will just skip few verses because here he talks and then go to what Arjuna says. Okay, so I'll go to text 33. So he talks about elaborately about Dhyana Yoga, that one should meditate on the form of the Lord, control the mind, practice the eightfold yoga system, Ashtanga Yoga, right? Then Arjuna says that, oh Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. You see, Arjuna 5,200 years back found it impractical, this system of yoga, of meditation, because he's saying mind is restless and very unsteady, right? Chanchala means very restless, and that is true. If you ask someone to sit for 3 hours at one place and meditate, can he do that? It's very difficult. Just by sitting for 20-30 minutes and meditating, it doesn't bring any good to anyone, right? And Arjun is saying to Krishna that whatever you told about Dhyana Yoga is impractical for me to follow, and it's unendurable. It's not possible for me. Further, he says that mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Oh Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. So here Arjun is saying, even I can control the wind, but it's very, very difficult because mind is always very restless, turbulent, obstinate, very, very strong. And it's very difficult to control the way you are telling here about Dhyana Yoga. So the thing is that this Dhyana Yoga practice, which Lord Krishna explained, is not practical to do it in this age, Kali Yuga. Let alone in Kali Yuga, it was not practical for Arjun to follow even in Dwapar Yuga 5,000 years back. This was the system which people or yogis used to follow in Satyuga, meditation. So as I mentioned, like every yuga has a, you can say, a prescribed method to achieve self-realization. Okay, so in the first yuga, which is Satyuga, meditation is the path. There, because there the lifespan of people were 100,000 years, and all of them in Satyuga are religious and very Krishna conscious. They are God conscious, and they are already in Satoguna, like mode of goodness. Almost 99% population in Satyug are religious, law-abiding, God-fearing, and so for them, like if you have 100,000 years of lifespan, like definitely you can meditate or do this meditation for a few thousand years. But when our lifespan itself is only 100 years, that too now the lifespan has gone down to 70, 80 years. And that too, so how will you meditate and practice this particular yoga system? And that's what Arjun telling to Krishna, that it's impractical. You have summarized what is impractical and undurable for me. because the mind is restless, very turbulent, obstinate, very strong. And to subdue it is more difficult than controlling the wind. So he says, Chanchala hi manah Krishna, pramathi balavat dhridam. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna is, Chanchal means flickering. And if you notice, if you sit down at one place, the mind keeps generating so many thoughts. The mind's function is to keep generating thoughts. And then Lord has provided us intelligence. Intelligence is our gatekeeper. It filters out those thoughts. Okay, this is good, this is bad. Whatever is bad, ignore it. I don't do it. Whatever is good, yes, I will do. So like that, that's the intelligence, mind intelligence. But if intelligence is also contaminated, then it loses its sense of good and bad. Then the person gets corrupted and his life is like becomes miserable. So I would just want to read this part where Prabhupada says, the individual is the passenger in the car of the material body. Okay. So we, all of us have this material body, which we can see, but we are not this material body. This is the first instruction in spirituality, which Krishna talks about, that we are not this body. This is just a temporary body which is given to us. We are actually the spirit soul, which is sitting inside the material body. So here the individual is referred as the spirit soul, who is a passenger in the car of the material body. So this material body is a car. So car's purpose is to take one from one place to us, to its destination. So that's why this human body is given to us for a purpose, to take us to the spiritual world, from material world to spiritual world. And along with material body, Lord has given the intelligence and all that, so that we can understand these instructions which Lord Krishna wants us to understand. And further he says, and intelligence is the driver. Okay. Mind is the driving instrument and senses are the horses. So intelligence is the driver. If one's intelligence is right, then the car of the human body will drive in the right direction. And mind is the driving instrument. Like mind is the one whom intelligence should drive, not the other way, that mind is driving the whole everyone. And sense is the horses, sense should then abide. So this is the ideal situation where the soul, which is we should be in control of all our intelligence, mind, and senses. The self is thus the enjoyer or sufferer in the association of mind and senses. So it is understood by great thinkers that intelligence is supposed to direct the mind. But the mind is so strong and obstinate that it often overcomes even one's own intelligence. As an acute infection may surpass the efficacy of medicine, such a strong mind is supposed to be controlled by a practice of yoga. But such practice is never practical for a worldly person like Arjun. And what can we say of modern man? The simile used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing wind, and it is even more difficult to capture the turbulent mind. The easiest way to control the mind, as suggested by Lord Chaitanya, is chanting Hare Krishna mantra, the great mantra for deliverance in all humility. The method prescribed is Savai Manha Krishna Padaravindayo. One must engage one's mind fully in Krishna, only then will there remain no engagement to agitate the mind. So the conclusion is that in this age where we are, where we have a short lifespan, we have short memory, we have so many things on our head, this system of Dhyan Yoga is impractical actually. Okay. Even for Arjuna, it was impractical 5,200 years back. Same is the case today. What is practical and what is the prescribed method for this age is chanting the process like Harinam Kirtan or Harinam Japa. That is a prescribed method, and that's why this is prescribed, because as I mentioned, Lord Krishna has invested all his energy, all his potency in the name. And this name is not material. Like devotees are chanting Hare Krishna day and night, and they still never get tired of chanting. Meaning, it's not that every day we chant 16 rounds, almost 1,728 names of mala, which becomes 28,000 names because each mala has 16 names. So we never feel that we are tired or there is no, you can say, spiritual thing, because these names are not material. While if you someday chant some material names, for example, house, or let's say Prabhupada used to get Coca-Cola. Like if you chant Coca-Cola, 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 you will feel tired and you will feel no pleasure, nothing. Right? After a while, you will stop chanting. But those who are chanting Hare Krishna for a while can say that their pleasure or the drive to chant this keeps increasing, and mind also is abides by that and keeps subduing. Like it keeps subduing the mind, and mind starts getting under control. Okay, so this is the prescribed method for this age of Kali Yuga, chanting Hare Krishna mantra or Nam Kirtan. Okay, so let's discuss further what Lord Krishna talks about the mind. I think we had few more devotees joining. Thanks for joining. So very wonderfully, Arjun puts this question to Krishna on behalf of us, that this system of Dhyan Yoga which you are telling is impractical, undurable, not possible for me. Mind is very restless, turbulent, obstinate. So what to do? And see what Lord Krishna says now. In verse 35, Lord Krishna says, O mighty son, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. He says, yes, I agree that it is very difficult to control the mind, but it is possible by abhyas. Abhyasena tu kante, viragyena cha grihate. If we practice, then yes, the mind can be controlled. But in this age, we cannot practice this system of Dhyan Yoga because it's too difficult for us. Our bodies are not meant to do too much tapasya now. Even if you sit now outside, like yogis used to sit in the open, cold, heat, rainy, they just used to meditate for years. Now we can't even now sit at one place and meditate for 1 hour. Our body itself will not cooperate, right? Someone will start feeling pain in the leg. Someone will start feeling this, that. Mind will go all over. So not practical. So what is practical is this chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. If you can sit nicely at one place, take your mala, chant nicely, and then just bring your mind and make it listen to that sound vibration. That's the Bhakti Yoga system, or chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. That's practical. So Prabhupada says, yes, the difficulty of controlling the mind as expressed by Arjuna is accepted by Lord Krishna. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. Okay. So what is that practice which Krishna is talking here? In this present, what is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on super soul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. It's literally impractical. If I tell anyone who is a householder, okay, you have to go into a secluded place in a forest, sit on a kusha grass, wear the deer skin and just meditate and that's it. You say, are you crazy? How can I do? First of all, there are no forests like that, and nothing is there. I can't do. My body don't cooperate. So Prabhupada says, yeah, that's true. In this age, not possible. And whatever meditation or people are doing in the name of meditation today, like little 20-30 minutes, that too, they don't know whom to meditate on. They are just meditating anything and everything. It doesn't bring any good. To be honest, it doesn't bring any change, or nothing it will bring. So then further Prabhupada says that by the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost is hearing about Krishna. So today we are all hearing, like Shravan. So when we hear, that is also devotional service, because we are hearing through our ears, we are getting the nectar inside. And Prabhupada says that this is very powerful method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. Okay, so this is a secret. The more one hears about Lord Krishna and his instructions and about his pastimes, automatically your detachment will start increasing from material things which basically drives away. We don't have to artificially practice detachment. All we have to do is engage. Okay, we have to just engage and automatically detachment will happen. We don't have to practice detachment. Okay, because even if you, let's say, many yogis artificially give up, okay, I will not talk to, or maun vrat rakh lete or something they do, but their mind is, if its mind is still not under control, so it will dwell on those sense objects. So it's just a show of them. Artificially, they may be sitting in a secluded place and controlling mind, but anytime, trying to control mind, but anytime they can become subject. And that has happened to a lot of great personalities like Vishwamitra, who did lot of meditation, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. And just when Urvashi, who is the Apsara from the heavenly kingdom, she came and her meditation broke just by hearing the tinkling bells of her, you can say, uh, it broke, her meditation broke with just, so that's the thing. So it's not possible to control the mind by Dhyan Yoga or meditation. And what Prabhupada is recommending, that Krishna is recommending, one should practice this process of Bhakti Yoga, and by that automatically our mind will get controlled and it will become our true friend. But detaching the mind from activities not devoted to Lord Krishna, one can very easily learn Vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. Okay, so this is the thing. It's very difficult to detach the mind from material things because mind needs engagement. If you don't give him a positive engagement, then how will it detach? For example, I'll give you can easily relate a small child. If you tell him, you just sit idle, like if he's misbehaving or not like not cooperating or like not being a too naughty, and if you say to the child, okay, you just sit idle here, maybe he can sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but he cannot sit idle for 2-3 hours. The child needs engagement. So the duty of parents to engage the child in positive things, like make him sit, read something about Lord Krishna, or make him sit and learn some instruments, music. So that is a positive engagement. If you cannot engage the child in the positive things, then you can't expect him to detach himself from all the other things which he will then get engaged in. Similarly is the mind. So if we want to detach the mind from material things, we have to give him higher engagement, higher taste. And that higher taste is to engage the mind in the activities of Krishna. Because when we experience the higher taste, then automatically the taste for material things automatically goes away. Because when you experience a higher taste, automatically your tendency to experience or engage in lower taste goes away. So this is the practical means, not the way many impersonalists do, like they try to give up some things, but then their internal desire to have those things does not go away. They still have that in their heart, and then that's called a Falgu Viragya, like artificial renunciation. And further, Prabhupada said this is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Pareshanubhava. Spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind. And eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so again here Lord Krishna talks about the practice. So practice of engaging our mind and senses in his service. And by some practice, let's say, the mind automatically starts obeying to what you want him to do. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult. Okay. Yeah. So let's go further. Then Lord Krishna says that for one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. Okay. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Unbridled means uncontrolled. So Krishna is talking about that whose mind is not controlled is very difficult to achieve self-realization, but whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means, he is assured of success. Further, Krishna says, Arjuna talks about now more questions he is asking. Okay, he's asking very wonderful question. This maybe many of you have this question. What if we start following this path of spirituality and after some time we go away? What will happen? Won't it be a loss for us that वो बोलते हैं ना 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 हमें मिली माया ना भगवान मिले like now either we are on the material side not spiritually we will be in between like we will not be able to enjoy materially not spiritually let's say that's the question Arjun asked. He says what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist? Unsuccessful transcendentalist means spiritualist like who are following this path of spirituality they are called all spiritualists whether bhakti yoga or anyone who is following this path they are called spiritual. So he's talking that what is if someone is unsuccessful on this path, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, okay, but who later does this due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. So what he's saying is basically someone, let's say in the beginning takes to this path of self-realization with faith, but because of his too much attraction to worldly mindedness or world-minded people, later he goes away and he does not follow. So what will be his destination? Kya hoga uska next? So let's see what Krishna says. Further he says, Arjun ki, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position anywhere? Basically he's saying ki agar someone is following this path and goes away, so he's losing from both sides. Like he's neither being able to achieve spiritual perfection, neither he can enjoy material success. So he will be like a loser, complete loser. Isn't that the case? He's asking like this to Krishna, sorry. And he further says, this is my doubt, Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. So is that the many of you also may have this doubt, right? In the beginning, when we are on this path of spirituality, trying to understand, what if I am not successful? Won't I be a loser? Like I won't be able to enjoy materially, neither I am achieving spiritual perfection. So I am somewhere in between. So listen what Krishna has to say for these people who could not achieve perfection in the same very life. Krishna says that, O son of Parth, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. So he says, one who engaged in this auspicious activities, in the spiritual activities, he will never meet destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. He will always be protected. He will never be me. And one who does good, one who always does good to others, he is never gonna be overcome by evil. Sometimes people feel, okay, this person did such and such thing to me, and why he did that. All this is immaterial. Like we should always try to do good to others without expecting them what others will feel, others will do to us. Because if we are good, we are always under the protection of Lord Krishna. Right? So very important was this 40, where Krishna is giving the assurance that one who follows this path will never will never face destruction in this world or in the spiritual world. Okay. And then he further says what will happen. He says that the unsuccessful yogi, here the yogi means unsuccessful practitioner of yoga system, any yoga system, whether it be this yoga, other yoga. So he's saying after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. So he's saying a person who is unsuccessful, first of all, he will go to a planet of pious living entities where he will enjoy for so many years. Why Krishna is giving him so much enjoyment? Because this unsuccessful yogi left the path of spirituality because of attraction to material things, right? Lord, if you see the question which Arjun asked is that what if someone leaves this path of spirituality because of his worldly mindedness, because he wants to enjoy the world, material world? Krishna says that's fine. He will enjoy after he will enjoy many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of pious living entities. What he means that this person will go to a higher planet like Swarglok, where there is more enjoyment, much more enjoyment, material enjoyment compared to this place, Earth. And after enjoying for several many years there, when he comes back, he will be born into a family of a righteous people, like a religious people, and into a family of rich aristocracy. So he will be given a chance to again take birth in the family of devotees, Brahmanas, or into a family of rich people. Why? Because then he will resume his bhakti from that point where he left off. So this is again an important verse. Prapya punya kritam lokan ustitava shasvatihi samaha suchinam shrimatam gehe. So suchinam means of the pious, religious people. Shrimatam means of the prosperous, who are well off, like they don't have a problem. Okay, so Lord Krishna makes sure that this person who is unsuccessful in completing his spiritual path and leaves that path because he has too much attraction for material things, he say, okay, no problem, you go and enjoy however you want to enjoy. Go in the planet of Indradev. He will become a devta there, enjoy for many millions years, many years, and then he comes back again on the earth. And once he has fully enjoyed to his satisfaction, he will be given a chance to take birth in the family of Shuchinam, religious people, and Shrimatam, very prosperous people, rich people. And from that point on, Krishna says further. So, righteous people or in a family, or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. And further, Krishna says, on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. Krishna is saying there is no loss in this path. Whatever you do, little more eternally goes into your account. And even if you leave this body and not able to complete successfully, you are guaranteed a chance, at least at a minimum, you are guaranteed a human body in your next life. And if your desire is to enjoy more materially, then you go to higher planets, enjoy there for many years, come back to earth. Krishna will make sure that you take birth in the family of devotees, so that from your childhood itself, you picks up and resumes your bhakti from the point you left in the previous. What it means is, let's say in this particular life, someone may be able to practice and 10% only, let's say, okay, 10% bhakti, and he leaves the body. So that 10% eternally goes to his spiritual account. Nobody can write it off. Now, when he comes back again, first of all, he is sure to get a birth as a human. Plus, Lord Krishna will make sure that he takes the birth in the family of devotees, in the family of Brahmana. Like he will make things favorable for that soul to practice or resume his bhakti in the next life. And that person in the next life not start from 0% again. He will start from 10.1% and then starts progressing further. So eternally, whatever we achieve, eternally goes away, always, eternally goes into our account, spiritual account. While whatever we earn materially, whatever material assets we have, that remains here. Family remains here, our bank balance remains here, our material education remains here, our material opulence remains here, material designation. You may be the president of the whole, like a big, strong, big nation like US, but in next life, you're not guaranteed you will be president. Like you may be just a normal person, or you may born in a family of dogs. You may become a dog in the next life. No guarantee. But if you practice bhakti in this life, Krishna is giving guarantee that yes, that will eternally go to your spiritual credit. And in the next life, you will be born in a family of devotees and be given a chance to start from the point you left in the previous life. It's such a wonderful arrangement by Lord Krishna. So an intelligent person will think, what I am doing here, like why I am after these temporary things, material things which have no meaning. Like after I leave this body, this will remain here. In fact, I should engage all my energy and all my strength and all my senses in the spirituality, in the bhakti yoga, because that's what which will help me in the next life and the next life, and ultimately I will be liberated from the cycle of birth and death and go to the spiritual world from where I should not be coming back here. That is the reality. That is why the human form of life is given to us, right? Otherwise, like we may be making millions and billions of dollars in this life, but that won't help us. People make plans after retirement. Okay, I will live for this many years. I should have this much money. But what's the plan after leaving the body? If there is no plan, that means you are not an intelligent person. Then you were just thinking only about 80, 90 years, which is nothing in the scheme of things. Like we have been basically revolving the cycle for billions of years. So 78 years is nothing in that big cycle. So if we don't find a way to stop that revolving in the cycle and suffering, then we are losers actually. Okay, so next, continue. How much? 12. Okay. Then he further says that by virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of scripture. And then further he says, when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations and ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So that means there is no loss in this path of spiritual endeavor, because even if we are unsuccessful, we are at a minimum guaranteed a good life in a family of devotees, in a family of rich people in next. And Krishna is saying, because of our divine consciousness of previous life, we automatically person will become attracted to this path, and he will start following this path from the beginning. Okay. And further he says a yogi is greater than ascetic, greater than impressed, and greater than fruitive worker. So yogi is the best one. Therefore, O Arjun, on all circumstances, be a yogi. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he's the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. The last statement which Krishna talks about is the icing on the cake. He's saying, Yoginam ape sarvesham mad katenantar atmana shraddhavan bhajate yoman same yukta tamomad. So he's giving his frank opinion that of all the yogis, there could be Karma Yogi, Gyan Yogi, impersonalist who are after his impersonal things. All these are yogis only because they are all following the path. Different paths are there. But Krishna is saying of all them, one who with great faith always abides in me. Abides me means always follows the instruction which he's giving in Bhagavad Gita. He always thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me. This is very important. Rendering the transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. Okay. And he's saying he's the most intimately united with me in yoga and he's the highest of all. That is my opinion. Okay, we have 5-10 minutes. So this is the conclusion of this chapter where Lord Krishna gives his verdict towards the end that the one who works for Lord Krishna, who always remembers him, renders transcendental loving service to him, he is the greatest. And second message which he gives is that there is no loss in this path. Whatever one does in this life, even if he remains unsuccessful, there is no problem. He will be given a chance to resume from next life. So this is basically assurance that do not worry. Don't worry that you will be a loser. In fact, if one follows only the material path and not follow this path, then he is a real loser because whatever he accumulates in this life, at the time of death, everything will remain here. You can't even take a small thing with you in the next life. And if you have not practiced spirituality, there is no surety what your next life would be. You may take birth in a very poor family. You may be taking birth in a plant kingdom, in animal kingdom. You may have to suffer and go to Narkloka. All these are possibilities. But if one engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, one engages in Bhakti Yoga, then all auspicious, because he's always protected by the Harinam. Harinam is always protected by Lord in all circumstances. Lord Krishna saying he's never faces destruction neither in this world nor in spiritual world. He's always under my protection. Okay. So with that, we conclude today's session. And then if you have any questions, comments, so we can discuss now. So we have now 5 more devotees. Aparna ji, Hemant ji, okay. Yeah. Any questions so far? No. Let me talk.